Hey everybody, Edo here, and I am excited because I have Bryan Merlonghi on with us today. Say hello, Bryan.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. And so certainly if you haven't heard Bryan's name specifically, you've probably heard of Cutthroat Kingdoms that has recently launched, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, it was somewhere pretty nicely in Sam Healey's top 100 games. I recall hearing that. It's a pretty big deal.
yeah.
And actually, so congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank
Um,
you.
and it was actually pretty whole nother topic. The top 100 this year was pretty interesting across the board with all three of those guys. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, very different games from
yeah,
all of them. Yeah.
the gaming is changing and they're changing with it. But um, you know, uh, independent developer, you're an independent marketing manager, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit because I see you as one of those people that have had an interesting entry point into games and is starting to do this emerging marketing manager, social media, game, online role
Mhm.
that is just popping up all over the place. And people are always curious about all the different things you can do in the game industry and how you get there and how you learn. Um, and so I thought we could dive into that and cut through and all that stuff.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So you and I
Absolutely.
met for the first time, I believe. I may be wrong on the location, but I'm pretty sure it was at a proto spiel in, I think it was in San Jose.
Yep.
Um, you were showing Cutthroat Kingdoms, really early version. I don't know how different it is, but some version of it on a table. You had like, skulls and books, and it was when I was doing the Siblings Trouble, and I
Yes.
had like a small book box for the Siblings Trouble, and you had this giant book box you were using, and we started chatting.
Yep.
Um, where was that moment in the process? Like, how long had you been in development? Go back in time and tell that story a little bit.
It was like 3 or 4 years ago. And you're right. Yeah, I remember it was a proto spiel. It was actually my very first public reveal of Cutthroat beyond my little playtest groups in Santa Cruz when I was living there. And it was incredible. It was, I saw what you were doing at the time, and I don't think you were getting your start, but you had siblings trouble, and the everything was beautiful, the graphic design, all of it, and I was new. I didn't know anybody. I was looking at your stuff like, oh my God, someday maybe I'll get there. And yeah, it was really a special time, and that's when I really tested the waters, threw fear to kind of the wayside, and said, let's see what Cutthroat can do with the public.
Right. And so, unfortunately, I didn't play it at that event, but I saw you lots of people playing, lots of people having fun. So it was clearly the seed of whatever you ended up with. But at that time, one of the discussions we had was Kickstarter, exclusive box, and then you and I talked about it more. I think we bumped each other into because you were living in Santa Cruz, so I think maybe it was Gen Con flying back. We talked more about it. And at some point along that process, as sort of indie creator, could have just as easily gone the Kickstarter route in your own company, uh,
Yep.
you pivoted. So, and that's a big decision a lot of people who listen to this channel talk about. Can you talk about that? What was happening and how you made the choice not to kickstart?
That's a huge decision to make. In hindsight, actually now where I am 3 or 4 years later, it was an even bigger decision to make. It's not to be taken lightly. Kickstarter is now the means to start a company. There's no doubt. If you have a successful game on Kickstarter, you can more or less start your own publishing company, or at the very least, your own mini game studio, like you've done. And I would say you're a great success and definitely a major influencer on me.
Though, and I
Uh,
appreciate that, but let's recognize for a second, like I'm not independently able to do this and not have my own full time thing. So
yeah, yeah,
success in a
yeah.
certain type, but not success in like be able to like live off of its success. But keep going. I
Sure.
appreciate the comment.
Well, and that actually brings me to one of my very first points in my decision making process was, can I live off of this if I do it myself?
Right.
And doing it yourself, I was going through all the numbers. I was going through the amount of work it takes to understand shipping, marketing. At the time, I knew nothing about marketing at all, especially not online marketing. I only knew, in-person
Sure.
convention marketing. And so all of that, I'm thinking, wow, if I go through all of these hoops, and all of the hoops were flaming, If I jump through all of these hoops, will I be able to pay my bills at the end of the day? And yeah, I mean, even with a number of successes like you have, the margins are tight on a physical product. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've come to understand is that physical products versus digital come with a very tight margin, lower development time and cost in some cases, right, from video games. But that per unit sale point is not bringing home a lot of money. So if I really want to do the Kickstarter, the number one thing I had to be very clear on was, do I want to do everything passionately? Do I have a passion?
Yeah, you definitely need to know if you want to do everything.
Yeah, the design part, as a designer, we know we have passion for that. We love that. But if I were to do a Kickstarter, I needed the same passion for all of the business end of everything, even the bookkeeping, the accounting. And I didn't have a passion for that. That was the decision maker. I truly did not.
And so you make this decision, right? And this is sort of where it gets interesting because you end up suffering a little bit out of the whole, whereas if you did on your own, maybe it would have existed a year earlier. Cutthroat Kingdoms
Sure.
took a really long time. So
Yeah.
so you say, all right, I'm not ready to do this, or I'm considering going to a publisher. How did it move forward with AEG? Like, how did that come to pass?
Yeah, that was really interesting. So after Unpub, it was great. It was super successful. Really, a lot of excitement. Took it to Gen Con, got into publisher speed dating.
Good, right?
Yeah, and from then I had all the top publishers interested. Simon and I were talking quite a bit back and forth. AEG. God, I remember even talking to Zev from Z-Man. It was like I felt like the belle of the ball a little bit.
Well, and
And
I remember talking to you then, and it was a little weird because you're like, well, these people are talking to me, but these people are talking to me, but I haven't seen a piece of paper from these people, and these people sort of, you went through the whole ringer with some of these groups, right?
oh man, it was well at first. The first couple months is just talk.
Right.
It's pure talk. And yeah, I didn't move into the paperwork stage. My God, and getting an actual offer for 6 months after
Wow.
TikTok. Yeah, and this whole time I could have been kickstarting things. I had established such momentum at that point that the marketer in me now says, "Man, that was the time to strike." So much momentum, etc. But something in me said, "Wait, just wait. Let's see how it did." And I'll tell you what, that wait ended up being, I would say, 8 months. 8 months from me signing the contract offer from AEG was 8 months from Gen Con. And
Well,
that 8 months was painful.
well, and then if I'm not mistaken, beyond
Yeah.
that, you then were in some period of I don't know that it was redesign. I think it was more like development and refinement, and I think there was an art path. Like
Yeah.
there was even more after that 8 months. It's not like after 8 months they signed and started printing, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, the second day the contract was signed, then we moved into development. So it got put into a development wheel where their internal developers partnered with me. It was Brian Reese at the time, and I'd make the trek from Santa Cruz to Sacramento like at least twice a month to do development work to hone it. We were then working. Matt Paquette was signed on as the graphic designer to do all the layout of the cards. And actually, even after development, we ended up enlisting the artist. I had already gotten all the art done, but because of the development and we added new features, etc., the artist had to do, I don't know, 20 new assets. So that took time. So that really brought us to at least, I would say, a year
Yeah.
following the initial interest.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're talking. I mean, again, that when siblings trouble, that was before the siblings trouble kickstarted for sure. So that was at least
yeah,
2020, 2014, or maybe 2015. It was
yeah,
a long time ago. And so,
yeah.
and
3 years later.
yeah, and well, let's talk about this development phase just for a second because
Sure.
I do want to get over to the marketing stuff too. But on the development side, for independent designers, new designers, or even veteran designers, oftentimes that publisher development phase is really difficult. It's really difficult either because the publisher says, "Thank you for your design. I won't talk to you later. We'll tell you when your royalty checks are coming,"
Right.
or they're a cool publisher. Cool might not be the right, but an engaging publisher where they bring you into the loop, but then they
Right.
still sort of make the calls, right? They're still like, "Yeah, but we really think it needs a fifth player," or
Yeah.
I don't know. This isn't true to Cutthroat. I'm just saying, but like,
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and have a lot of influence and impact on the overall look feel. How did you sort of balance doing that, making the best game possible while sort of dealing with all those changes and adjustments?
Well, my story is a happy one. I AEG was an absolute pleasure. They had a lot of faith in me, and I'm a first time designer. Now, not a first time. I have another two games on the way, but at the time, I'm new, and AEG's been around for years. And yeah, they partnered me with Bryan, their in-house developer, and it was a very agreeable process. I mean, nothing was done to the game without my consent. It was literally me and Bryan side by side, literally working on the game. Now, I don't think that would have been the case at CMON. I remember initial talks where I was going to be, at the time, I think I was going to sign the rights away, and sort of I didn't know. I was uncertain whether I was going to be able to be a part of the development or not. And so that was actually a decision point. I wanted to be involved, not only in the development, but also the art direction. I wanted to be the art director. I wanted to almost be kind of the brand identity,
Well, because
marketing.
you were talking when we spoke back then a lot
Yeah.
about narrative and world building and fictional design and all that stuff,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, and that's a good topic because so world building is this huge, ambitious ideal, right? And now that I think about it, and I have this wonderful world built for Cutthroat, but none of that should be invested in. No time should be invested in unless it's a success financially. A publisher needs to stay in business, and if the game does not prove its worth financially, world building is not an option.
Yeah, sounds like you've been working in the industry for a few years. I don't. It's
Yeah,
very,
yeah,
very different, Brian, than when we spoke about this last.
yeah.
That
Now I'll tell you though, I
was
still
almost a scripted
believe.
answer, man.
Yeah, no, no, no. I believe in my heart that a good world and a good game, regardless of the financial success, will find a home. But and actually, a good game and a good world will find financial success. And so far, Cutthroat, it's only been out for a short time. It's been selling out at every con and it's doing well. Will I go through world building? Um, I don't know. You know, why not let the game speak for itself? And if the fans want a world, it's there, and I can build on that. But it might, time is limited. I'm busy. I have painting, as you can see, I paint and everything like that. I'd rather focus on really putting all my energy into the marketing of Cutthroat, into the community management of Cutthroat, and let the world building sort of
Sure.
let it build itself in a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I do want to get to some of the marketing conversation, but so Cutthroat AG, they go through the process. You work with them. It's
Yep.
all great. Then after you're all done and ready and you have it all together, then you got to wait another 6 months because you
Yeah.
send the files to print and manufacturing and shipment, and then finding the right launch window and all that, and eventually, finally, maybe just it launches, and it's been very well received. Um, so congratulations again. And it sounds like you're doing other designs. Are those other designs sort of independent and you're looking for publishers, or are they with the AEG specifically?
So at the time, shortly after Cutthroat, I had started on 7 Days, plane crash survival game, and yeah, they picked it up at the exact same time.
Oh,
So that
cool.
was kind of yeah, it was a 2-for-1 deal. That I'm not sure the release date yet. In fact, later today, I'm going to a play test of it. So I'm still in development of that. But and then the third game is currently, I would say about 50% of the way done, and I'm looking for a publisher for that. I haven't shown it yet because I'm not, it's, I want it to get about 75% of the way done before I show it. But yeah.
Well, and you'll find it's interesting, right? As you go through your first game and your second game and your third game, you start seeing how they're received differently, perform differently. It's always interesting seeing Kickstarter creators and designers who start small and get bigger, or start big and roll around, and it's always a process. And all these games are different games in different moments of time. But so there's this one track that's slowly moving along, which is the Cutthroat Kingdom. Maybe eventually, finally, this game will arrive line. That's your long beat. But then in there, you're immersing yourself in the game space. You're going to cons. You're meeting people, and sort of presumably come up with this decision that you're like, this is where I want to be. Like, I really like this space. And then so then how did you end up you ended up getting a job as a marketing manager for IDW, if I'm not mistaken. How did that happen while all this other stuff is happening?
I'll tell you, Cutthroat Kingdoms was the reason it happened. I had no marketing information, no knowledge prior to Cutthroat. I was working at West Marine as a productions coordinator, so I was doing more coding, HTML coding, making sure the website, westmarine.com, was functional. I'd work with some of the PR companies, or the PR teams, to make sure that their posts were getting launched, but no marketing. Cutthroat Kingdoms, I just sort of stumbled on marketing, and to me, it wasn't marketing. It was just I wouldn't even call it marketing. It was just
Spreading
me
the word on the game.
Yeah, just doing a good demo, getting people to really immerse themselves in the experience, then being online a lot with social media and talking about it, talking about other people's projects. And somewhere along the lines, people started noticing, and IDW, Nate Murray, who worked at IDW at the time, had heard about me. I mean, and I had never met the guy in my life, and he had heard about me through Cutthroat. And yeah, so then I got hired at IDW as the marketing manager of their games division, and now I am officially in a formal marketing position, and I had never been formally in one before.
Right, and then so you did the stint at IDW, and now you're doing marketing work for AEG and some other people, right? Loosely, more loosely.
Yeah, so I after IDW, I moved on, and I kind of converted from being tied to a company to being a contractor. The reason for this primarily was because I had babies out in the world. I had just given birth. Cutthroat was my first child. I'm going to have more. And being tied to a company formally really inhibited my ability to market my own games.
Sure. And suddenly that's weird, right? Hey, that's AEG's game. What are you doing, man?
Yep.
Close that. Who are you talking to right now?
Yeah, and conflict of interest was a new phrase I had never heard of before, and now it's a thing. And so yeah, so I moved into being independent, which still splits my time. As an independent contractor, I still can only give, I'd say, about 80% of my focus to whatever project I'm working on, while maintaining 20% for my own. And that was amazing. It allowed me the freedom to market other projects, see other things fly. Actually, currently, I'm doing Thug Life for Jason Serrato.
Sure.
I actually in Germany at Essen, I was interviewed by a documentary crew called Game Masters about the struggles of marketing Thug Life, the game. And we don't have to talk about that, or we could, but
I have a couple more questions, but finish your train of thought.
Yeah. So yeah, the independent contracting, it was a switch that now I'm not the main creator of a game. This is somebody else's baby. Like Steven Sauer, he had a game at IDW called Sherlock Holmes, and that's not my baby. That's his work. But I fell in love with it, and I saw this great brand identity for that particular product. I was getting cats to come in, and we were dressing them up as Sherlock Holmes,
Sure.
and we were we were going to go to a cat cafe and have a demo of the game with cats dressed up. And it was really cool to market for someone else, especially someone that I didn't know prior to this, who now we're sort of, I wouldn't say we're friends per se, but we know each other on the internet. And so that was really rewarding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
game artisan of Canada. But also, yeah, no, certainly even in the context of Pencil First Games, some of the games I design, some I develop, some I co-design, whatever. But for Herbaceous, for example, which was really effectively Steve's design,
Yeah.
suddenly you can talk about how awesome the design is without it being weird, right? You can be like, this
Exactly.
this is
Yeah.
a really great
It's
design when
not
it's your own.
shameless
It's a little,
anymore. It's
but
yeah.
so for all those people, and again, on this channel, there's like a hodgepodge of people who watch, as far as I can tell. But for those who are like again interested in getting into the industry and
Yep.
this emergent marketing manager role, and these bigger companies that see everything happening on Kickstarter, they see everything happening on social media, they see outreach, and they know that it's both a combination of brick and mortar initiatives and online initiatives, are looking for new, fresh, in tune people. Um,
Yes.
and so one of the questions I have for you is, so if you're somebody who's doing this on your own game, or you sort of like marketing and you're figuring it out,
Sure.
once you took the job and you've had the formal roles, what do you think are the key things you should keep in mind when you're just going from talking about your stuff to being a marketing manager? Like, what are the key skills, or what are the key tips you'd give to somebody who's interested in that transition?
The number one thing, no matter what, is relationships. It is your relationships with influencers. Influencers is a buzzword now. It's anybody who is either online talking about games or offline talking about games, who makes an impact on buyers. Um, and so your relationships with these guys, and they new ones crop up, new influencers crop up daily. I mean, my influencer list that I've built is, constantly being added to. Some are being removed. People get out of it, people get into it, and it's not just like cold emailing these people. It's really developing relationships, and sometimes that's difficult. I think the biggest challenge is when you have a product that so at IDW, I would market all of their games. Now, I didn't love all of their games. I loved most of them, but a couple here or there,
Sure.
I didn't see a place in the market for them at the current time, whatever. And so that's really where the magic can happen. And it's the important part, is that your job will be to market a product that the publisher feels strongly about, and you need to feel strongly about it too. Now, I don't mean faking it, right? You can't fake, if you don't like the game, you don't like the game. But this is where your relationships really come in. You need to find a home for that game. Maybe if it's not in your heart, it needs to be in the heart of an influencer or multiple influencers. There's always a home for a game. If a game exists, it's because somebody liked it. And your job as a marketer is to really find that market. And it really starts with, effectively, it starts with the people, the fans, right? But ultimately, it starts with those influencers, the people who have a say in the industry, who will like it, even if you don't.
Right. And I mean, I
Yeah.
think you've touched on a few interesting things. One, again, the relationship aspect of it. And I would say that's true in lots of different areas, but certainly
Yeah.
when you're in that influencer space. And sometimes a top tier influencer, sometimes call it a tastemaker, right? Um,
Yep.
and for those watching.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
also, you then talk about this idea, and I talk about this all the time, of when you're working professionally at a company, um, suddenly it isn't all your stuff. And this is, if you're a career product manager, this is like not news. But for somebody who's coming in from really liking their own thing,
Yeah.
suddenly you have a
Yeah.
job to do, you have responsibilities, and you need to figure out how to move and market whatever brick is handed to you.
Yeah.
And there's red bricks and green bricks and heavy bricks and light bricks.
Yes.
But your
Yes.
job isn't to complain about the brick. Your job is to sell the brick, right? or
Right.
market the brick. And so, and that's a big. I definitely think for somebody who's considering getting into marketing, that idea, and certainly it also helps to market to get a job at least at a company where you like the majority of their stuff, right?
Absolutely.
If you're into
Yes.
board games,
That's
but
number
you
one. Yeah.
but you look for a job in pet products, it might not work for you because you're not going to like any of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what other tips or thoughts do you have after that?
So relationships are big. Also, just learning the digital space, and it's constantly evolving. It's constantly growing. Really good book that I actually a friend Jordan Nichols gave to me, a fellow designer in the Bay Area, was a Gary Vaynerchuk book called "Killing It" or something like that. It was a marketing book, and it just shows how rapid the digital space is changing and how powerful it is. And understanding social media, not just posting, but having value to add and not just being noise, brand identity, um, personal brand identity, all of these buzzwords that are very relevant right now, and they may not be relevant in 5 years. Something might change.
Sure.
And so, really being up to date on what is available in the digital space and how I can reach people. That's like I, I can't even begin to say how important that is.
Yeah, and I don't think we have time to talk about brand identity and personal brand identity, but
Sure.
those are huge topics, right? And
Yes.
huge opportunities and pitfalls and opportunities and
Absolutely.
pitfalls for people. When you
Yeah.
think about tools, I mean, I'm super curious. What would you say are and let's keep it to the board game space, the key
Sure.
tools and social network slash spaces that you are, where do you find the most important influencers? Like, what are the areas you target?
Yeah. So Instagram's a really great place for pictures and for fans. Um, Influencers may or may not gravitate to Instagram looking for content per se, but fans, new people that want to hear about your game, it's very easy. You just post a picture. If you're at a convention, if you're, just of your playing pieces, whatever, Instagram's awesome. I would say for me, finding the one, so there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's Pinterest, there's Tumblr, there's Facebook, there's tons, but I think the key is finding the one that really works for you. Facebook is my home. Facebook is where I pour most of my energy into. I buy ads on Facebook. I do all of my postings on Facebook. Now, my postings can be magnified through Hootsuite, or there's a couple other applications out there that when you post to Facebook, it also posts to Twitter, it posts to wherever else you want. But it's kind of madness to keep up with all. There's like six or seven, and you really need to be good at your job. You have got to be a leader in all of them. You know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that finding the spot that's right for you as well, though, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
know for me, Instagram's an example of one where, like, after Facebook and after Twitter, I played around with a little bit, but since it's not a space that I actually consume content in that much myself, being
Sure.
really active, it's just a thing on top of a thing, and then a lot of times you're just chucking something up, and it
Yeah.
isn't really doing what you need it to, or even on the creator side, I recently have been doing this Kickstarter to improve my channel,
Mm.
and a bunch of people were like, "Oh, why don't you use Patreon?" It's like, man, that's a whole nother thing with
That's new to
like,
me. Yeah.
and like going at it. It's just sort of
Right.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is a platform I know, I'm comfortable with, I'm in it all
Sure.
the time.
Yeah.
You know, I, I don't like backing people on Patreon that much because so I think it just turns into a combination of knowing what they are, but knowing your take on it. I think is a big deal.
A hundred
Um,
percent. Yeah.
and if for those who don't know, because you mentioned Hootsuite, which is different, that's a pretty neat application that again allows you to look at tweets, push tweets, you know, amplify, schedule. Pretty simple sort of power user Twitter application. Um, there's
Yeah.
no equivalent to that on Facebook, is there?
Um.
There,
Uh,
there must be.
there's got to be, and again, like I said, technology advances at such a rapid pace that I mean, it's I don't see Facebook going away anytime soon. I really don't see Twitter going away either. Maybe in the far future, but not in the here and now.
Yeah.
But yeah, things change. I mean, there could be an application today, tomorrow. I don't, who
Yeah, sure.
knows?
Right.
Yeah.
And so we've come to about the 30-minute mark, but sort of to wrap it up, if to summarize, right? Uh, Independently, you are a designer, and you've had you're looking like a very successful first game. We'll track it over the coming months, but clearly out of the gate, it's been strong. You're working on some continued designs with companies you have relationships with, perhaps some will go to some new companies, and then you've moved into this marketing space, and your approach right now is sort of as a contractor and working for allowing you to have your own personal identity in addition to helping promote and share. Do
Yes.
you feel like that's what you're aiming to do, or do you see yourself transitioning to one or the other? I mean, where, like, if we look at you in 2 years, what's
Yeah.
2 years down the road, Bryan, look like?
That's really interesting. So, I have been doing a lot of work with Geek and Sundry. They are kind of a prominent. I wouldn't call them an influencer. They're basically a YouTube for all things geek and gaming.
Sure,
Um,
they house many influencers, right? Like,
they do.
yeah,
Oh, totally. Yeah. But and being a media personality has been a new thing.
sure.
And so where I see myself in 2 years is I really want to push the boundaries of gaming. I want to start being on the leading edge of innovation in the space. And so maybe doing talks. Right now, so far I might be writing a book with two other PhDs, a sociology PhD and a psychology PhD on how games can be used for therapy, or the sociology, sort of this ethnographic study of games, board games specifically. Um, I I'd like to start moving towards being a media personality for the board game space, for physical games, in terms of immersion, how we immerse ourselves in experiences, how we can create even more immersive experiences, and how we can push the boundaries of gaming in general. And that's really where I see myself. And marketing is a huge arm of that. It's understanding the market, but then it's opening up new markets. I want to see board gaming more mainstream than ever. I want to see immersive experiences more mainstream than ever. And I want to see even new mediums of immersive experiences uh, start cropping up and really pushing the boundaries. And so that's really where I'm headed. And doing contract marketing, understanding gaming, understanding the market, doing media personality sort of appearances at Geek and Sundry, et cetera. These are all leading there. And I'm just following that path, and that is my ultimate
Hey
goal.
man,
And
that was a good full answer. I sort of
so,
thought you were going
yeah,
to waffle and be like, I don't
it's
know,
passion.
but no,
I
you
got
had
a
a
lot
good
of
answer.
passion.
You had a good answer there. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
awesome, man. Well, so thanks
Thanks.
for being on and talking about all this stuff. Appreciate it, and thank you everyone for watching and subscribing and all that good stuff. But have a great afternoon, man.
And thank you, Ed, for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Bye.
yeah, yeah. Bye.